Hey Heidi, this is how I make my pasta dough. There is a pound of flour, which is about 3 1/4 cup of flour. I do 5 eggs, large, like extra large, probably about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and maybe about a 1/4 spoon of sea salt, just for a little flavoring. So I just break up the eggs, the egg yolks. And you'll get a little bit of a greenish tint to it, but if you're using really good olive oil, it's because of the olive oil. And as soon as the eggs are all mixed up, I try to do it with my left hand. That ain't gonna work. I start to incorporate some of the flour into the eggs. Like that. It'll start to clump a little bit, but you don't have to worry about that. And it starts to thicken up. And you want to try to keep as much as the bowl shape of the flour as possible so the eggs don't run out and get everywhere. I have a marble slab at home that I use. Our countertops are kind of crappy, so when I'm making dough it tends to stick to them, but the marble slab works really well. So if you got a hard surface, not sure what your countertops are like, but it's really awesome to use something like this. So you can see it's starting to get a little thicker. And when it does, I grab this guy and I just start to incorporate the rest of the flour into the egg mixture like that. So like I said, 5 eggs, 3 1/4 cup of flour, that's about a pound, teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of olive oil, about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So this is just the basic pasta dough. Once you get this down, then it's possible to go ahead and add some other things like spinach or basil or pepper. You can basically add whatever you want, you just have to account for the moisture. So once I get this pretty much to form, I start using my hands. You can do this all in your mixer too, but I don't know, there's something pretty cool about doing it this way, you know? So if it's really sticky when you're trying to knead it, I'm going to scrape some of this up. Just get some flour on the palm of your hands, like that. You don't want to add too much at once though, because it'll start to dry out the dough. So this is the way I do it. So I indent it, fold it over, do it again, fold it the other way, and just using the palm of my hand. But you want to make sure the dough is folding within itself, because you really want to get things mixed well. So I think you said this is the part that you hate. It's a good workout though, you know? I should actually try to use some of this dough to season your machine. So I don't know if you can see that, but I just keep turning the dough in and then using my palm to mix it. And then you can kind of slop up the other stuff on the board with it. So if the dough is still sticky, you want to just add a little bit more flour to your hands. So you want to do this for a good 5 minutes. And then what I usually do, the dough, first of all, the dough will be really kind of soft and smooth. That was my phone. Man, there's not even any rest when you're making pasta. So they say that the more you knead the dough, the more, what's the word? The texture of the pasta will be really light and kind of fluffy. It's kind of good for summertime dishes, but it's not necessarily my favorite. So I'm not going to let you watch this for 5 minutes, but that's basically how it turns out, and I can feel that it's starting to get much softer and smoother. And then what I do, Heidi, is I put a little flour on the board, the marble that I use, and put a little flour on top and cover it up with some plastic, and I usually let it sit for about 20 minutes or a half hour, and that's just to let the dough, I think what they call it is glutenized, and it just lets it rest so all the ingredients get to mesh together for a little while. So after I let it sit, Heidi, what I do is I'll cut it into quarters like this. This is actually going to be dough I give to you. So you got these little pieces. While you're working with one piece, make sure you keep the other pieces covered so they don't dry out and get a hard crust on the dough. But you can use a rolling pin for this or just your hands. And so what you would do is put this piece of dough, and you want to try to get it as even as possible for the first round through the machine. So something that thick, that kind of looks like that, will go through the roller part of the machine first. And after you put it through, what you want to do, so it'll come out long and kind of flat, much flatter than this, is you want to fold it again and try to get it more square if you can, and then you would put it through the roller again. And then you would move to the next setting. So you only have to fold it and do that once, but when you go to the next setting, you just keep rolling the dough through the subsequent setting. So you would set your machine to the next thinner setting on the pasta rollers. So at some point the dough could potentially get longer than my marble slab that you see here. So what I tend to do is I keep an eye on it, and I'm just kind of watching. So I'll tend to cut it for how long I want the pasta for. I have been making pasta on the next to the last setting, on not the thinnest setting when I'm rolling it out, but the next to the last one. So the pasta that you had this weekend was actually put on that setting. So it's a little thicker. Some people weren't crazy about it. They prefer the finer setting, which makes the pasta really light, kind of yummy. But I was just worried about it sticking and sitting in the cooler so long. So you can either put it on that setting, I tend to like it because my sauces tend to be heavier, and I feel like the pasta noodles hold up better when they're thicker. But if you like lighter noodles, then just roll it to the finest setting. And so once I have one piece of it completely rolled out and through all the settings, then I actually put it through those pieces. So you'll have multiple pieces, anywhere from 2 to 4 pieces from this little piece of dough. And then I either make the tagliatelle, which are the wider noodle that I gave you, and then on the pasta machine there is another setting for spaghetti. So I tend to do one piece, complete the one piece through the whole process, set the pasta aside, then take the next piece. This way the dough that's laying flat doesn't dry out too much, but when you're rolling it, the most important piece is having flour on it so it doesn't stick to itself or going through the pasta machine when you're actually making the pasta. So, okay, so I'm going to let this rest a little bit and I'll go ahead and give this to you. But I'll also cut a little piece and maybe season the machine for you. Okay? Alright.